Hey everybody, Eric Mortensen from Liberty Action here, and today joining me is our Northern Plains field manager, Hannah Detterman. How you doing, Hannah?
Good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We got some fun stuff. It's always fun to talk to the troublemakers, and
Yeah.
we want troublemakers in these state capitals. We want the troublemakers in Washington D.C. because the establishment, the political machine, the apparatus itself has no interest in changing things. We need people to go in and flip the tables over and to force these conversations and force these legislative actions. So today, joining us is Representative Dylan Jordan out of South Dakota. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here. There's a lot going on in South Dakota, and this whole 41st day. I want to talk about this a little bit to tee this thing up. I had never heard of this before until maybe a couple months ago, and now I'm seeing this is like the MO for the South Dakota establishment is to have this mythical 41st day. The hey, we're not going to kill this bill. We're going to put it in the pot of gold on the other side of the rainbow, and we're supposed to believe that this thing actually still exists. So, what's going on in South Dakota?
Yeah, the 41st day motion is unique to South Dakota, where our legislative session is only 40 days. So if they bring it to the 41st days, it means it's off the calendar, and it's basically dead. They just don't want to say it's dead, and that's always what a lot of good bills that they don't want to go on record on. They kill them in committee and send them to the 41st day. They've been doing that for years here.
Yeah. Maybe we should be careful here as we talk about this because we don't want to give these people any ideas in these other states. But that is so wild to me, and it's so transparent that this is the way that the establishment says, well, we didn't kill it. We didn't vote against it. In fact, I voted for it in a motion to just, do it a little later on the day of the legislative session. That doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yep. Sometimes they kind of use that as a soft killing to try deviate public pressure off them from that.
Exactly. And let's be honest, like that is what politicians respond to. They're always looking out for that public pressure and how do they squirm out of that pressure and dodge accountability. And of course, what they want is they want their colleagues to help them hide their cowardly actions. But as I understand it, you're not very interested in helping them hide their cowardly actions. You would rather expose it, right?
Yeah, that is true. I've have a reputation in Pierre already as bringing the one that brings the bombshell bills to put people on record, and I think it's a good honor to be that individual.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was my approach in Minnesota, and I'm convinced we need people to do it. The leftists have it, right? If the whole Democrat apparatus, the anti-liberty apparatus, they have people tugging on that Overton window and pulling our whole country towards tyranny. It's about time we had conservatives and liberty lovers pulling us back in the other direction. But it's a shame that so many of these establishment types, these cowardly, phony conservatives that get elected after campaigning on this message of smaller government, reduce taxes, reduce spending, and my favorite, the fraud, waste, and abuse. And then they get in office and they tuck their tail and they just refuse to act.
Yep. It's kind of funny because you should see the looks I've gotten at first. Now they're used to it and they kind of like joke around about it. But I have a principle where if it says fee increase in the bill, I vote no. And they always are like, but it's us granting authority to some board. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not going to affordability is the number one issue facing us right now. I'm not going to say, if I said I'm not against that, I'm not for taxes, I'm not going to vote to increase any fees or taxes. So, you'd be surprised, or you probably wouldn't because you've served, but how radical of an idea that is to just say no.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate they see it that way. So tell us about the legislation you've introduced that has gotten killed on this 41st day thing.
Yep. This session, I brought a bill that I thought would make it. It was a bill similar to, I'll name a couple of them, similar to what our neighboring state where you're from, Minnesota, has, where if a trailer is under 3,000 pounds, the tag is lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
that got sent to the 41st day because the bureaucrats don't want to give or they want to keep taxing you to death. I brought campus carry, constitutional carry, that got sent to the 41st day, and I brought the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and that got sent to the 41st day, just to name a couple.
Yeah, and that amazes me. I said this previously, but in Minnesota, we look to you South Dakotans, our neighbors to the west, and think, wow, how great it must be to be in South Dakota. No income tax. You've got conservative governing. But it sounds like you guys have your fair share of issues, your fair share of rhino problems, just like the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, not to keep talking on that point, but I actually got on KELOLAND News, which is the big news website in South Dakota, because we had a bill that was a campus carry, clean campus carry, because we have it if you have the enhanced permit. So you have to spend a couple $100s and give your fingerprints to the FBI to defend yourself on a college campus. So I brought a bill to just wipe it clean and have it be constitutional carry like they claim South Dakota is. That died. And then another good friend of mine, a representative, brought a bill to make it so more staff could carry on campus, and that died. So at the end of my comments, I said, I'm sorry, I forgot I didn't realize that I was on the Minnesota Education Committee. And then I got point of ordered by the chair and a couple other representatives on the committee. And the people that spent 2 or 3 hours testifying for gun control got all mad, and the crowd got a little unruly, and she had to knock the gavel down, and it made KELOLAND, and people were asking me about it, and I told them I take nothing back because I thought we were a constitutional carry state. But that's just one example of even in red South Dakota, we're more purple than people like to realize.
Yeah, that's a shame. And I can't stand, I get it. You're mentioned in Minnesota, but I'm in Wyoming right now. I'm in Cheyenne. I'm here for the first 2 weeks of session. And I was at an event last night, and they threw up a little visual of Minnesota talking about our fraud. I just cannot escape the headlines that Minnesota tends to find itself in. And on that note, Hannah, you've got ties to Minnesota. You've got ties to South Dakota. That's where you're at now. You've been watching the legislature closely. What's going on from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the bills that Dylan brought were definitely things that shook up the legislature quite a bit. The Second Amendment Preservation Act, that died unanimously in committee. One guy even said that he had participated in ride-alongs with the ATF, participating in gun grabs, and he was bragging about it, and that's why they had to kill the bill, and it was just kind of crazy. Another one, campus carry. They passed that bill last session out of the Senate clean. So when they passed it initially in the Senate, it was constitutional carry on the campuses, and then it was amended later on to be that enhanced permit. Now they're just completely not open at all to expanding that to be constitutional carry. So,
oh, interesting. What changed in the last year? I don't know. Maybe it's an election year and politicians even get more cowardly when they're up for re-election. Do you think that's an issue here?
Yeah, that's got to be exactly it. And I think these people too just generally don't like to take action. They have this excuse like, well, we have to give the bill that passed last year some time. We got to see how it works, which is a total cop-out.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you've become so fluent in politician speak, because there's no shortage of politician speak, and I had them doing it to me last night in Cheyenne when I challenged a senator. Why did you vote against repealing the property tax in the vote on Monday? And of course, she went into her politician speak with no real substance, just a bunch of nonsense. And this is one of the things that people need to keep in mind is when politicians get elected, they want to get sucked into the middle, right? They want to do everything safe and be with the group, right? The herd, and their objective is to do nothing. That's really what they want to do. They don't want to do anything, because if they do something, especially if it's controversial, if it's an issue like Representative Jordan brings up, they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because they know if they do, they might upset somebody. And if they upset somebody, that might put their next reelection at risk. And that is paramount. These people, largely, with very rare exceptions, exceptions would include like Representative Jordan here. I suspect you're one of these exceptions where like you're not driven by your political ambition. You're driven by your
No.
actual principles and delivering for the people of your state.
Yep. I've told a lot of people recently that it was never my lifetime goal to be in this position. I came to do what I could do when I can do it. And if I'm acting like I only have one term, and then hopefully the people of my district think I represented them well. And then if I come back, I'll keep doing it. But if not, I can just live life and be able to sleep good at night.
Yeah, I love that mentality. When I first got elected and I'm taking a tour of the place, they showed me my office, and our chief of staff said, "You're going to want to get a nice, comfortable couch. Ideally, it folds out into a bed because you'll probably have to spend some nights here." And I looked at her and said, "Oh, I don't plan on being here very long. I'm not buying a $3,000 sleeper couch." But the look you get from Capitol staff when you say something like, "Oh, I don't plan to be here long," they're flabbergasted, because all these elected officials, nearly all of them, they intend on spending like the rest of their, life in this position, so long as they're allowed to. It's very unique. So we appreciate your actions and what you do. What else do you guys want to cover here? What's going on in South Dakota? What's coming up on the agenda? Is there some big stuff coming?
Yeah, we'll have a lot of property tax bills coming. They dropped in the Senate. I forget the Senate bill number, but abolish property taxes in South Dakota. So that will be coming up soon. I'm a co-sponsor on that, and I'm waiting for that to hear when that's on committee. And then we also have, that's a big bills that I know that are coming. We've brought some big bills, but they, in typical fashion, they like to put them right up front and try to snag them away. So right now, I'm not exactly sure what's all coming. I know we have a couple medical freedom bills coming up soon, but I forget what bill numbers they are but I know in health we have that coming up soon as well.
Yeah, isn't it funny? Everybody expects you to have every single bill number memorized, and it's like, it's impossible. You can't memorize all, unless you're Hannah. Hannah memorizes all these bill numbers.
In South Dakota, they said this year over 1,000 bills got drafted and over 600 got released, and we're going over them in 37 days. So
yeah, it's wild. Well, all right. Well, then if that's what you guys got, I'll give you another opportunity. Anything else brewing here? What can people do if people that are watching this? You're in South Dakota. You're frustrated. Like what do you want them to do, Dylan?
One thing I want everyone to remember is to always stay positive and stay active, because this year we may not have the numbers to get some of the stuff passed. But a couple years ago, a lot of these bills didn't get brought, and we're also bringing more bills to the floor to get roll call votes to have politicians be held accountable, because we're a constitutional representative republic, and if they're not representing you, we need to handle that during election season, not to name names. One thing all politicians like to do, and it's what I worked on before I was in the legislature and before I ran, and it's what I'll continue to do even if I'm not in the legislature. We have to hold politicians accountable and put them on record, because a politician's natural response is to always stay neutral.
Yep.
And I've taken training with you guys and other groups, and we have to put them on record so they know they're representing us, so we can move the dial towards freedom as much as we can. So even a couple years ago, on like all these tax increase bills and fee increase bills, we only had like 6 voting against it. Now it's 14, 18, and there's 70. So we're getting the momentum, and we're just getting started. So just because we lose some of the floor votes, keep going. It's election year, and we'll continue on. It's a long process. And what I tell people, it took 100 years to get us here. It's going to take probably 50 to get us back. This is a generational fight. Yeah. And I always tell people in my area, when I get all the articles bashing me and all that stuff, I'm 31 years old, and most of these people are in their late 60s. I think I'm going to win.
Yeah, good for you. I like to tell people this. It's 2026, right? You go back in time 5 years.
Yep.
To 2021. If I could go back in time find myself in 2021 and tell the 2021 version of me, hey, you know what? In the future, the Democrats of Minnesota are going to make it so that if you refuse to let your 13-year-old son or daughter cut their genitals off, the state will take away your parental rights. And the 2021 version of me, I guarantee, would say, you're nuts. Sure, liberals have lost their minds, but there's no way they're going to take away our parental rights if we refuse to let our kids cut their genitals off. That's nuts. That's been law in Minnesota for the last 3 years. So the people, the liberty lovers out there that are like, man, I feel like we're not making traction. I think your point is spot on. You have to be persistent. You have to stay in the fight. You have to hold these people accountable, and you have to find your way to instill like political fear in the eyes of the politicians. Every politician out there, the message they need to hear from their constituents is, we hired you, you work for us, you're going to do what we tell you to do, or we'll hire someone else who will. Like that's the message that every politician needs to hear from every constituent that's out there. So thanks for joining me here. I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm going to do a little recap of what's going on in Wyoming.
All right. Thank you. And like I always tell student groups and high school groups when they come, to never trust the government. And then I always tell them to quote a Chris Jansen song to stay rowdy.
Yes.
But thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
You too. All right. Well, that was Dylan Jordan. He's a true liberty champion down there in South Dakota. Here in Wyoming, some big stuff has happened so far this week. The residential property tax repeal bill, it ended up being Senate Resolution 3, ended up getting a vote on Monday. We've been talking to people that it's going to happen Tuesday on the 10th for months. Well, they threw a curveball at us. They threw it on the schedule for Monday, and it went down 7-24. But like Dylan has said, and like I've just been saying, you don't let this stuff get you down. Now we have 24 senators here in Wyoming that are on the record saying, no, we want your tax dollars. We want those property tax dollars. So we're going to keep taking them. And what made it interesting is maybe 15 minutes before the residential property tax repeal vote, they had this obscure vote, this piece of legislation come forward saying that for some reason, the Wyoming Game and Fish on the property that that they own or they manage, I guess I'm not sure to what extent, but they still pay property taxes. So there was a vote to repeal property taxes for Wyoming Game and Fish. I would have voted for it too, and it passed overwhelmingly. I think it almost was unanimous. But then 15 minutes later, when the senators here in Cheyenne were tasked with, well, you agree we should, the government agencies shouldn't be paying property tax. What do we think about the people? The people that voted for us, the people that put us here, property taxes are skyrocketing all across the nation. People are getting squeezed out of their homes. Families are being separated. Nobody, let's be honest, nobody actually owns their property in this country. You rent it from the government because if you don't pay your taxes, they'll take away your home. Maybe even throw you in a cage, depending on what state you're in. So when it came for that vote, only 7 senators in the Wyoming State Senate voted to repeal residential property taxes, or at least even allow the bill to be introduced. And Senator Troy McEwen was an absolute rock star when he introduced this thing. We've got his speech. I should probably grab his speech for next week and I can play it in my next update. He did a great job, gave a great speech. However, the spending addicts in Cheyenne decided, nope, we want that revenue to keep coming in and we're going to force people to keep paying property taxes. But that doesn't mean the fight is over. Every single politician needs to hear from you that I hired you. You work for me. You will do what I tell you to do, or I will hire somebody else. What else is happening in Wyoming? We have several pieces of gun legislation advancing. There's an effort to lower the age from 21 to 18 to allow people to carry when they're 18 years old. I think it's perfectly common sense. If you get shipped overseas and go fight, potentially die for your country, why shouldn't you be able to carry a firearm at the age of 18 right here in your home country? There was an effort to ban taxpayer-funded lobbying that went down yesterday. for introduction. And unfortunately, in the House here in Wyoming, they shot it down. They wouldn't even entertain the idea. But just imagine, and this is an issue I didn't even spend a lot of time thinking about until recently, the fact that they take our money and then they use that money to pay lobbyists to do what? Come back into the Capitol to lobby for more of your money that can go back into the lobbyist pockets so that they can come back and lobby for more. It's this circular nonsense, this taxpayer funded lobbying. So that went down. It failed to get introduced in the House here in Cheyenne today, actually yesterday. But there's some other big things happening here in Cheyenne. We're trying to get some of the governor candidates to sign our surveys or fill out our survey, our candidate survey, which is a very hardcore survey. I've filled it out in the past when I was a candidate, and it's more essay style. So we've gotten that survey to several of the gubernatorial candidates here in Wyoming to see where do they stand on the issues. So that will be very, very interesting to see. So I'm pushing 25 minutes here. I'm going to wrap this thing up, and we're going to keep doing this every week. And I'll remind everybody once again, if you are sick and tired of being politically disrespected, of not being heard, not being listened to, you reach out to your state senators, you reach out to your state representatives, and they just flat out ignore you. Remember, if you want to be politically respected, you must be politically feared.